As Akbar returns to bed and tries to sleep, he suddenly opens his eyes and sees Grandma's face hovering right above him. Terrified, he runs to Hestu's room and opens the wardrobe, insisting that Grandma's ghost is in the house. Just then, the door suddenly slams shut, and the lights in the room go out. Moments later, their grandmother appears before them, making them even more terrified. She slowly begins walking toward them, and Hestu nervously asks what they should do. However, in the next moment, Grandma suddenly disappears. The brothers breathe a sigh of relief, but then she places a hand on Hestu's shoulder and another on Akbar's, and when they look up, Grandma tells them, in 5 days, come with Grandma. The movie opens with Hestu nervously pushing open the door of an old house. As he cautiously steps inside, a shadowy figure appears behind him, before the door violently slams shut on its own. Moments later, someone calls out his name, and we see an elderly woman slowly approaching him from behind, saying that he has finally come home. Terrified, Hestu lets out a loud scream, but he suddenly jolts awake and realizes that it was only a nightmare. Later, when Hestu arrives at the office, he receives a call from his boss, who instructs him to terminate 6 employees. Following the order, Hestu calls the employees in one by one and hands firing letters to the first 5. Furious over losing their jobs, they hurl insults at him before eventually leaving. However, when Hestu checks the 6th letter, he is shocked to discover that it bears his own name. Stunned, he immediately confronts his boss. In response, his boss coldly asks if he wants to hit him. He then points out that the entire conversation is being monitored, with security cameras installed all around the office and a man recording everything on a camcorder. When Hestu walks out of the cabin, he too starts cursing the company in frustration. And seeing this, the same employees he had fired just moments earlier can't help but mock him, telling him that this is nothing but instant karma. Hestu receives a call from his brother Akbar, who urges him to come home because their grandmother misses him. However, Hestu dismisses it, saying Akbar always uses their grandmother's illness as an excuse to bring him back. Frustrated, he tells Akbar he'll only return when she actually dies. Later, when Hestu returns to the boarding house, he discovers that the electricians have stolen all of his belongings. A man comments that sometimes bad luck just never stops, adding that at least Hestu still has a job. Just then, Hestu receives a call from Akbar, who calls him an ungrateful grandson, telling him that because of his words, Grandma has really passed away. The next day, Hestu returns to his village, and seeing him arrive, 2 men gossip that he never came back when his grandmother was sick, and that he has probably returned only for his inheritance. However, when they meet him face to face, they offer their condolences and tell him that his grandmother must be proud of him because he is kind, successful, and still remembers his village. As they walk away, one of the men mentions that Grandma died on Saturday wage at 6 o'clock. On the 6th day of the 6th month. He says there is a myth that anyone who dies under such circumstances will take someone else with them. The two then start betting on who will die next, Hestu or his brother, Akbar. Hestu then meets Akbar, but Akbar is clearly upset with him. Hestu tries to talk to him, but Akbar ignores him and walks away. However, after a while, he comes back, saying that he went the wrong way. After Akbar leaves, Hestu apologizes to his grandmother and tells her to rest in peace. He says that he was only joking and asks why she took his words so seriously. Just then, a strong wind begins to blow, making Hestu uneasy, and his grandmother appears behind him, calling out his name. Slowly, she starts moving toward him while repeatedly calling his name. But when Hestu turns around, no one is there. That's because she is now standing directly behind him. But then, she suddenly appears on the other side. Later, a man named Kotrek wakes him up and asks if he still remembers him. A flashback reveals that Kotrek was a bully who used to beat him up regularly when they were children. Shortly afterward, Nisa asks if he remembers her as well, and it turns out that Nisa is Kortek's childhood crush. She tells him that they found him at the cemetery, asking why he is quiet and why he was at the cemetery at night. Akbar says if people make a lot of mistakes, it's better to keep quiet, saying he should have watched what he said. Nisa stops them and reminds them that they are in mourning, saying that they should speak nicely to each other. However, Akbar replies that he already asked Hestu to come home nicely. Nisa then says that they are twins, and twins should always get along. Later, as Hestu enters his room, he recalls a childhood memory. His grandmother is constantly forcing him to study because he has an exam the next day. At the same time, Hestu feels that she always loved Akbar more than him. Hestu checks his phone and starts scrolling through reels. In one video, a man is explaining a mysterious chant, while another reel talks about ghosts. Just then, he hears a strange noise. When he steps outside to check, he is shocked to see his grandmother sweeping the yard. Terrified, Hestu looks again, only to find that his grandmother has moved even closer. The next moment, he hears her calling his name from behind him, and turning around, he screams in fear. Hestu rushes to Akbar's room and tells him that he saw Grandma's ghost, but Akbar is offended by the remark. Hestu reveals he also saw her at the cemetery earlier, but Akbar warns him never to call Grandma a ghost again. Hestu backs down and asks if he can sleep in Akbar's room, but Akbar refuses and throws him out. As Hestu leaves, Grandma's ghost is revealed to be standing nearby. As Akbar returns to bed and tries to sleep, he suddenly opens his eyes and sees Grandma's face hovering right above him. Terrified, he runs to Hestu's room and opens the wardrobe, insisting that Grandma's ghost is in the house. Just then, the door suddenly slams shut, and the lights in the room go out. Moments later, their grandmother appears before them, making them even more terrified. She slowly begins walking toward them, and Hestu nervously asks what they should do. However, in the next moment, Grandma suddenly disappears. The brothers breathe a sigh of relief, but then she places a hand on Hestu's shoulder and another on Akbar's, and when they look up, Grandma tells them, in 5 days, come with Grandma. The next morning, Akbar takes Hestu to a shaman named Mungan, who tells them that they only have 4 days left and should prepare themselves. He explains that according to an old belief, anyone who dies on the 6th day of the 6th month at 6 o'clock will take a relative with them, and in their case, they will be taken by their grandmother. Shocked, the brothers asks for a solution, and Mangun tells them that they must find a replacement. Akbar tells Hestu to find a replacement because he was the cause of Grandma's death. However, Hestu reminds him that he already said it was fate, and if fate says they are going to die, then they will die. He adds that the car could roll over, flip, explode, or fall into an abyss, and they'd die. Once home, Akbar starts suggesting possible replacements. First, he mentions elderly villagers who are alone and feel like a burden, saying they could help speed up the process. Then he suggests people who are seriously ill and have no hope of recovery. Finally, he brings up what he calls society's waste, arguing that the longer they stay in this world, the more crimes they will commit. He says they may end up in hell anyway, so this would be doing them a favor. Hestu asks why it sounds like they are planning to kill someone, and Akbar replies that if Hestu is ready to die alone, then he doesn't mind. The two then set their sights on Sotik, the oldest man in the village. All 4 of his wives have passed away, and he now lives alone. Hestu says he will simply make him say the words, just as Mangun instructed. Akbar tries to warn him that Sotiek's grandchildren are sometimes at the house, but Hestu doesn't listen and runs straight toward him. He asks Sotiek if he is willing to die and accompany their grandmother. Confused, Sotiek looks over at Akbar, and only then do his grandchildren come outside and ask what Hestu just said. The grandchildren immediately chase after them, forcing the brothers to run for their lives. They then visit the house of a woman named Rengo, who was never married and has been sick since she was young. Akbar tells Hestu that every time Rengo was about to get married, she suddenly fell ill. However, when they meet her, they are surprised to find that she looks perfectly healthy. Hestu points out that Akbar said she was sick, but Akbar tells him to focus on the mission. Rengo then greets them and offers her condolences for their grandmother's passing. She asks what brings them there today, and Hestu awkwardly replies that they haven't visited her in a long time, before asking if she is willing to. But before he can finish, Nisa arrives. She asks what they are doing there and hands a cake to Rengo, to which Rengo thanks her and tells her to put it in the back. Later, Akbar says that Nisa might become suspicious of them, to which Hestu replies that they already look stupid and says he is just going back to Jakarta. At least Grandma won't follow him there. Akbar accuses him of running away after starting this whole mess, but Hestu ignores him and simply walks away. Akbar tries to convince Hestu to stay, but as they reach the doorstep, they are terrified to see something written on the floor. Later, Hestu recalls how Grandma used to take them on walks through the village and rice fields when they were children. Akbar claims that he pushed Hestu into a rice field, leaving him stuck upside down, but Hestu insists it was actually Akbar who fell. The brothers begin arguing over whose memory is correct, and Akbar says Hestu must have hit his head back then, which is why he remembers it wrong. Just then, Grandma suddenly says that it was Akbar who fell, and terrified, they notice a shadow passing by beneath the door. Moments later, their grandmother's shadow appears on the window before slowly disappearing from sight again. The next day, Akbar once again blames Hestu, saying that this entire problem started because of him. The two immediately begin arguing again, and seeing this, a woman remarks that it's a sign they are about to die. Akbar tells Hestu that they need a proper plan, but Hestu points out that everything they tried yesterday ended in failure. Determined to keep looking, Hestu heads to an elderly community health post and directly asks one of the patients if he is ready to die. However, sitting nearby is Kotrek. Akbar asks if he also takes care of the elderly, but Kotrek reveals that the patient is actually his father and asks if they are seriously telling his father to die. Nisa asks the brothers what they have been doing, saying she received a report that Hestu lost his temper. She explains that ever since she saw them at Rango's house the other day, she has been suspicious of them and wants to know what they are hiding. Hestu says they can tell her everything, but whether she believes it or not is up to her. The brothers then explain the entire situation, and Nisa is completely shocked. Hestu says he understands if Nisa doesn't believe them, but instead of doubting them, she gets excited and says she has finally met people who have actually seen a ghost. She insists that they take her along the next time they see Grandma's ghost. Just then, a woman tells Nisa that Joyo is looking for her, and before leaving, Nisa warns the brothers that if they don't include her, they're no longer friends. A moment later, she returns and tells them to add her on Talk to Talk so they can keep her updated. They check Nisa's account and discover that she creates content about ghosts and aliens. Seeing this, Hestu says he never expected that from her. He wonders if they should tell her about their search for a replacement to accompany Grandma, thinking that she might know more than Mengun. However, Akbar reminds him of the last category on their list. Hestu says, scumbags, and Akbar asks who gave them those bruises. Hestu excitedly points out that it was a scumbag, meaning he perfectly fits their criteria. That night, the brothers secretly keep an eye on Kotrek. While watching him, Hestu receives a call from Nisa, but he ignores it, saying that she keeps asking to see Grandma's ghost. Akbar asks, so this is how Hestu has been ignoring him, but Hestu asks whether they are going to argue or focus on the job. Akbar admits that he feels bad for Kotrek, reminding Hestu that earlier that day, he was taking care of his father. He suggests finding someone else, but Hestu reminds him that Kotrek used to beat them up, steal their allowance, and spit on them when they were younger. Akbar then asks what the plan is, and Hestu explains that they will pretend to apologize to Kotrek. First, they will shake his hand, then give him an apology letter for what happened that afternoon. While they are still shaking hands, Kotrek will read the letter out loud. Suddenly, both of them get the feeling that someone is watching them. Akbar admits that he feels uneasy, and Hestu says he feels the same way, but tells him to stay focused. Akbar asks what the letter says, so Hestu reads it aloud. However, instead of an apology, the message has changed. Just then, Grandma appears before them, causing both of them to scream in terror. They immediately run into Kotrek's house, and panicking, Hestu asks if he is willing to die. The question instantly enrages Kotrek, who once again beats both of them up. Afterward, the brothers tell him everything that has been happening, but Kotrek refuses to believe a word of it. Just then, Hestu's phone starts ringing, and noticing the caller, Kotrek asks why Nisa keeps calling him. Akbar quickly claims that Nisa told them to come and apologize because she cares about him. Curious, Kotrek asks what else she said, and Hestu makes up a story and tells him that Nisa said she loves him. Hearing that, Kotrek becomes extremely happy and tells Hestu to answer the call. When Hestu picks up, he tells her that they are at the old building and that Grandma is waiting for her there. Nisa excitedly says she is on her way and tells him not to go anywhere. After the call ends, Kotrek eagerly asks what she said, and Hestu tells him that Nisa is coming over. Kotrek is thrilled and proudly declares that Nisa has finally realized that he is the best man for her. He then apologizes to the brothers, saying that he forgot to mention something important. According to him, there is a ghost inside this building, and that ghost used to be a boxer. That's why anyone who enters the place can suddenly end up with a bruised face, just like theirs. After a while, Nisa arrives and, excited to see her, Kotrek immediately walks over to her, but she completely ignores him and heads straight to Hestu and Akbar. Akbar tells her that Grandma is gone. She says she's been waiting for a moment like this for a long time, and then asks when she will get to see Grandma's ghost. Kotrek says he is still there, but Akbar ignores him and tells Nisa that they are actually trying to get rid of Grandma's ghost because their lives are in danger. If they fail to find someone to accompany Grandma to the afterlife, then in 3 days, both of them will be taken with her. Shocked, Nisa asks if they were really trying to make Rengo, Kotrek, or even Kotrek's father take their place and go with Grandma. Nisa tells them that if they are looking for a replacement, then they should find someone who actually deserves to die. Kotrek quickly calms her down, and after thinking for a moment, Nisa says that she knows someone who might be able to help them. The next day, she takes them to Mangan, who tells them that he just contacted their grandma, but she rejected. Kotrek asks can't he just do an exorcism? But the brothers asks him to calm down. Mangan then tells the brothers that he can't call their grandma, but he shows them 2 amulets, telling them that one of them can summon and the other can repel the ghosts. Later, Hestu and Akbar begin a ritual to summon their grandmother's spirit, unaware that a villager is secretly recording them in hopes of uploading the video online and making it go viral. Soon, a strong wind starts blowing through the area, which leaves Nisa extremely excited. However, after a while, the wind suddenly stops. Believing that the ritual has completed, the group prepares to leave. However, Hestu tells them to go ahead, saying that he and Akbar will catch up later. After the others leave, Hestu says that if Grandma is truly gone, she shouldn't be upset with them. Akbar then tells her to rest in peace and stop haunting them, adding that if anyone is at fault, it's Hestu. After that, the brothers leave the area. However, as soon as they are gone, a pocong is seen hopping after them from behind. Nisa says that she wants more footage, so she plans to return to the cemetery, but just then, they spot someone walking toward them. At first, they think it's Woro, but Akbar reminds everyone that Woro died 2 years ago. Kotrek calls out to her and tells her to come home with them. Hestu warns Kotrek that it really is a ghost, and reminds him that Woro is dead. Moments later, they finally get a clear look at the ghost's face, and terrified, all of them turn around and run. Nisa keeps recording her, but as Woro's ghost slowly start getting closer, the group flees in terror. However, on the other side of the road, they see a noodle seller looking absolutely terrified of someone. It turns out to be another ghost, and the 4 of them immediately run away from there as well. Meanwhile, a woman is searching for her child and eventually finds him sitting alone in an alley. But when the boy looks up at her, she realizes that he is possessed, and at that very moment, a terrifying ghost appears nearby. Meanwhile, the 4 of them come face to face with Grandma's ghost and realize that the ritual had actually failed. Just then, the terrified villagers come running past, shouting that there are ghosts everywhere and telling them to run. Just then, something grabs Kotrek's leg, and when he looks down, he is horrified to see the demon nurse. The 4 are terrified, but then they spot Woro's ghost standing nearby as well. While Hestu, Akbar, and Kotrek are completely terrified, Nisa is still excited to see all the ghosts gathered there. The others immediately run for their lives, but Nisa begins recording them. But Hestu eventually drags Nisa away with them. They all run for their lives, but suddenly come across a large, dark figure. Terrified, Kotrek immediately assumes that it's a Genderuwo, but a man explains that he is his uncle, telling the group to follow him to the town hall. They eventually reach the town hall, where Nisa tells the frightened villagers to calm down, saying that she knows a way to keep the ghosts away. She then shows them a video in which Mangun explains how to exorcise demons using ordinary household items in just 5 minutes. Nisa says, all they need is salt and bones, explaining that they must grind them together, apply the mixture to a picture containing a mantra, and sprinkle the rest around the room. The villagers ask where they are supposed to find those things so late at night, but just then, T-Rex steps forward and asks if she wants his rib. Kotrek immediately starts choking him, but before anything else can happen, a loud knock echoes from the door, startling everyone. Kotrek tells Tirek to open the door and see who it is. Nervously, as Tirek opens it, the noodle seller quickly rushes inside with his cart. The guard asks if he has any bones and salt, and the noodle seller replies that he does. As they are placing mantra papers around the town hall, Hestu notices a woman running toward the building, but she suddenly transforms into the demon nurse, prompting the group to quickly rushes inside and slams the door shut just before she reaches them. The ghosts begin violently pounding on the door, but after a while, everything suddenly goes silent. Nisa tells everyone to stay calm, saying that at least they are safe until morning. However, a villager shows her a video and asks her to explain it. The footage is blurry, but the man says that Michael recorded the 4 of them dancing in the graveyard earlier. He asks if they were performing a ritual to summon ghosts. The villagers immediately start accusing them, and the man says that everyone knows Grandma died on Saturday wage, which means she is looking to take someone with her. Since it is already past midnight, he warns that if the situation is not resolved by morning and someone dies, the village could become haunted forever. Hestu argues that they want to live too, and asks how a dead person can demand company in the afterlife. Akbar admits that the situation is their fault, but Hestu accuses him of always surrendering too easily. He then bitterly claims that Grandma always loved Akbar more and asks if he ever considered how that made him feel. Akbar tells him to stop thinking about himself, saying that someone has to stand up to the ghosts. When Hestu asks if that means he wants him to die instead, a frustrated Akbar walks to the door. Despite everyone's attempts to stop him, he steps outside and calmly heads toward the ghosts. Watching from inside the hall, Nisa is surprised by how fearless he seems. Even then, Hestu insists he isn't worried about Akbar and calls him selfish. Later, Nisa tells Hestu that he should go after Akbar, saying that he has been lonely all this time. However, Hestu dismisses it, saying that Akbar only nags him every day. Nisa explains that while Hestu was chasing his dreams in the city, Akbar was struggling on his own. He kept entering drawing competitions to prove to Grandma that her support had not been wasted. She then tells him that Rengo and Suk have sent their regards. Shocked, Hestu admits that he was wrong, but Nisa interrupts him. She explains that the villagers understands about death on a sacred date, but they are not angry at him. In fact, she is sure they genuinely want to help. Hestu admits that he thought no one would help him, let alone sacrifice themselves for him, because he had been away from the village for so long. Kotrek then points out that this is modern times, and people can simply talk to their neighbors when there is a problem. Hestu reminds him that he used to bully him, but Kotrek claims that he was actually trying to give him a high five and that he just didn't know his own strength. Just then, Mangun calls Nisa and tells her that he believes he made the wrong charm. He explains that the spell got switched and asks her to bring it back so he can fix it. Before Hestu leaves, Nisa tells him that Akbar has been willing to sacrifice himself for him all along. He stayed behind to take care of Grandma so that Hestu could focus on his dreams. As Hestu rushes off, Kotrek tells him to take care of his brother and not make the same mistakes he did. He also admits that all this time, he only wanted to play with them, but they kept running away from him. Kotrek and Nisa take the charm back to Mangun and ask him to make a new one. However, Mangun says he can't do that, explaining that making charms isn't as simple as making noodles. Hearing this, Kotrek loses his temper and starts beating him up. Meanwhile, Akbar comes face to face with Grandma's ghost, and she slowly begins approaching him. However, just then, Hestu arrives, and by the time he gets there, the ghost has already disappeared. Akbar pulls him away and asks why he came back, to which Hestu replies that it's his home too. Hestu then calls out to their grandmother and tells her to come out. Almost immediately, the lights begin to flicker, and moments later, Grandma emerges from the darkness and slowly turns toward them. Seeing Grandma's ghost, the two brothers freeze in fear. As she slowly moves closer, Akbar says that they are going to die. However, Hestu refuses to accept it, saying that he doesn't want to die. Akbar breaks down and begs for mercy, but Hestu tells him not to beg. He then turns to Grandma and says that she should be the one apologizing to them. Ever since they were children, they have done everything she asked, and now that she is dead, she wants them dead too. Hestu declares that he doesn't want to listen to the dead anymore. Grandma stops right in front of them and gently grabs both of their ears. She then asks who told them that she wanted to take their lives. Confused, Hestu says that she did. reminding her that this is the 7th day, to which Grandma explains that she only wanted to talk to them. However, every time she appeared, they either screamed in terror or ran away before she could say anything. The three of them then sit down together peacefully, and Grandma explains that she only wanted to see them again and hoped to see the two brothers get along. She says that she wanted that when she was alive, but unfortunately, she never got the chance to see it happen. A flashback reveals that Grandma knew Akbar was not very good at studying, so she kept him busy with drawing. That way, Hestu could focus completely on his education without distractions. Learning the truth, both Akbar and Hestu realize how badly they had misunderstood their grandmother, and filled with regret, they apologize to her. Grandma apologizes as well and says that she finally feels at peace. She tells them that it is time for her to leave. Before going, she hugs them and says that she will no longer force them to do things they don't enjoy. She adds that both of them have been carrying their burdens alone for far too long, and that from now on, they should carry those burdens together. With those final words, Grandma disappears, leaving both brothers in tears. The next day, Mangun arrives at their house, ready to confront the ghost. Nisa asks the brothers if they are okay, then immediately asks where Grandma is. Kotrek is surprised to see them alive and asks if they really didn't die. The brothers apologize for all the trouble they caused, but then suddenly remember that there are still other ghosts roaming around. Nisa then shows them a video on her phone. In the footage, she first approaches Woro's ghost and, for her dedication as a teacher, hands her a certificate and bonus. After that, Kotrek and Mangun play the azan on a phone for another ghost. As soon as the ghost hears it, it becomes frightened and vanishes. She even pulls out a mirror and shows it to the Pochongs, driving them away. Before long, the entire village is ghost-free, proving that sometimes a little appreciation and a well-timed mirror is more effective than any exorcism.